Before ancient Israel had kings, they were led in times of crisis by military leaders known as judges. Samuel the prophet was the last of the judges. 1st and 2nd Samuel were originally one book or scroll and described God's dealings with Samuel, Saul, David, Bathsheba, and Absalom. Was Hannah an example of personal sacrifice and gratitude? What did she pray after God blessed her? And Hannah prayed and said, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. My horns exulted in the Lord. My mouth is enlarged over my enemies, because I rejoice in your salvation. There's none holy as the Lord, for there's none beside you. Neither is there any rock like our God." When Samuel expressed disappointment over Israel's choice of a king, what did God say to him? But the Lord told him, "Listen to the people and everything they say to you. They haven't rejected you. They've rejected me as their king." How did Samuel pass on God's warning that kings are not the answer? How often are the words take and his used to describe a king? Could this indicate the utter selfishness of human governments in general? And he said, "This will be the behavior of the king who will reign over you. He'll take your sons and appoint them for his own chariots and to be his horsemen, and some will run before his chariots. He'll appoint captains over his thousands and captains over his 50s, and set some to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and some to make his weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He'll take your daughters to be perfumers, cooks, and bakers, and he'll take the best of your fields, your vineyards, and your olive groves, and he'll give them to his servants. He'll take 1/10 of your grain and your vintage, and give it to his officers and servants. And he'll take your male servants, your female servants, your finest young men, and your donkeys, and put them to his work. He'll take 1/10 of your sheep, and you'll be his servants. And you'll cry out in that day because of your king, whom you've chosen for yourselves, and the Lord will not hear you in that day." Samuel told Saul that Israel desired him. Did Saul react with humility? Is this a lesson for all of us to remain humble? Saul answered, "But am I not a Benjamite from the smallest tribe of Israel? And isn't my clan the least of all the clans of the tribe of Benjamin? Why do you say such a thing to me?" Is neglect of prayer a sin? What would Samuel say? "Moreover, as for me, far be it from me that I should sin against the Lord in ceasing to pray for you, but I'll teach you the good and the right way." What is the good and right way that Samuel taught? Only fear the Lord and serve him in truth with all your heart, for consider what great things he has done for you. Why was Saul ultimately rejected as king? But now your kingdom must end, for the Lord has sought out a man after his own heart. The Lord has already appointed him to be the leader of his people, because you have not kept the Lord's command. Though David committed terrible sins, he repented and remained a man of God. How many church leaders have been like David, faulty but repentant? David was anointed king 3 times. Was he anointed the first time as a youth in front of his older brothers? So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him right there in front of his brothers. The Lord's Spirit came over David from that point forward. Then Samuel left and went to Ramah. Was David later anointed king over the southern kingdom of Judah? The people of Judah met with David at Hebron and poured olive oil on his head to show that he was their new king. Then they told David, "The people from Jabesh and Gilead buried Saul." Perhaps 15 years after the first anointing, was David finally anointed king over all Israel, north and south. Does God often teach us patience to build our faith? So all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. Can even a man after God's own heart have great personal failings? What did Nathan say to David? Why have you despised the commandment of the Lord to do evil in his sight? You've killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword. You've taken his wife to be your wife, and have killed him with the sword of the people of Ammon. All God's people have great personal failings, and there are times that people must be kicked out of church for great public sins. Yet churches are filled with people who sin, and those who claim to be without sin are liars. Do we promote an atmosphere of grace in the church towards our mutual failures, or legalistic judgmentalism? You decide.